Oh, honestly unbalanced.
I think your children look about maybe like between 5 to 7. Correct me on that in a second.
One of them is between 5 and 7. They are 6. Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, perfect.
The other one is 9.
Oh, okay. Missed out on that one. But I would love to know what you've learned from your children and what you've observed. As someone who is obviously knows so much about the human body, have your children taught you anything and made you and actually had any light bulb moment through the observation of them?
Thousands. Thousands. My kids taught me how to bond. I think this sounds cliche, but I thought I knew what love was. I thought I knew how to bond to people. But the bond with my children and the biological need for that was so impactful on every cell of my body and being. So the ability to bond, the need to bond, the willingness to bond, the love of bonding, that is really the greatest lesson that I've learned from them. And then watching them bond with each other also, because I didn't grow up with a sibling where I had a secure bond. And so watching their love develop for each other, and of course my daughter will say she doesn't love her brother, but I know she does. And then I have an older daughter, younger son, and his need to be connected to her is, gosh, it's just the most refreshing and loving thing I've ever seen. Truly. I've just never seen somebody do so much to maintain their love with somebody else. It's incredible.
It's so beautiful.
Stunning.
I just watched on one of your Instagram posts as well about your beautiful new book about, I think, to quote your son, is his name Asher? Is that correct?
Yes,
beautiful
Asher.
Name. And he says, Mom, I watch you. So children watch us too, don't they? So I wonder if the question's reversed, what do you think that your children are learning by watching you?
Learning about watching me and my husband, or learning about watching me as a parent or a business owner, or what narrow the question for me?
Let's go as a parent.
Oh, what are they learning about me? Well, that I'll pretty much do everything for them. What they're learning. I tell you, and I'm saying that like tongue in cheek and, a little bit resentful and grindy right now because my daughter is home with a fever. She never gets sick. If she gets sick, she'll whisk through a fever in 4 hours and be done with it. This is the second day of a fever for my daughter. I can't remember her being sick 2 days in a row, maybe as a baby. So, she's just phenomenally healthy. And, she's asking me to do things like, Mom, can you lift the laundry basket lid for me? And I'm like, no. So I was like, have I raised you to think that I'm going to do all the things for you? Even when you're sick, you can lift that laundry basket handle, the lid. So what are they learning from me? I don't think there is any simple thing that they're learning from me. I think it's all very complex. I'm a very complicated person. But that, love has no limits. That's for sure.
On the physical level, like how have you? I've had this with our son in that I want to try and build his proprioception. I've been trying to do some core work. Baby, I'm on he's 7 months old. I've been trying to do some kind of core work in the broader sense with him.
Poor Sonny.
I've been working on his reaction speed, but I've been trying to some degree incorporate things that I would try and teach adults to him to some degree. Have you found that with your children at all, or have you just let children be children, or have you tried to bring that kind of teaching to them?
Oh my goodness, I love this question. I haven't had this question probably since they were babies, so I'm just so pumped to be able to talk about this. I basically just sprinkled milk on them and let them grow. Here's some, here's the milkies, and then just, free range. So I am definitely one of those parents that, knowing what I know about human development and the human body and how a body self-grows, you need to give correct constraints, safety constraints, so that, the baby's not, able to fall and, crack themselves open. So, within reason, we actually never had protections on doors or handles or corners in our house, which was weird. Every other family I went to, they had the child safety things everywhere. We didn't do that. I definitely was around my kids, my babies, all the time, and let them know what was theirs to play with and what wasn't, and that if they open a cabinet and shut it on themselves, it would hurt. So they figured that out. And they learned how to open a cabinet and shut a cabinet. And if they were coming perilously close to a corner, I'd help steer them. But I really wanted them to explore space, explore their body as much as possible. Never had them in any kind of restraining seat, unless they were in the car. And I didn't wear my kid all the time. I mostly had the kid on the ground and let them play with textures, fabrics, textiles, surfaces. When we would have, babysitters or nannies come over, they're like, what? Can't I just rope it off and let it ignore it? No, it's like you have to be there to watch so that they're safe. But my kids had their own movement journeys. My daughter walked obscenely early at 10 and a half months. We were shocked. Wow. And it wasn't because I think that was just innately that's when her body was programmed, because my son was a late walker. He walked at 15 months. If you're looking at the, whatever the developmental trajectories, she was on the early side, he was on the late side. But that kid, Asher, could crawl across a room faster than a flea. We used to call him the flea. It was like, how did he get from there to there? He was so fast, and he's still fast. We call him Asher Dasher. Mm-hmm. But so regarding that, I just really wanted to see nature take its course. And we don't live in rustic lands. We're city dwellers. So I really had to do my best to make sure that, my kids were able to be, stimulated by the backyard, stimulated by the front yard, took them to the park all the time, and was definitely the barefoot kids mom, even in the winter, because they had just developed so much strength and insulation in their feet. Also, I live in Los Angeles, so it doesn't really get that cold. But yeah, that really was the path. One of my good friends, Jean Goodman, I can't remember the name of her book, but her husband is ERYT Goodman, who created Foundation Training. She wrote an incredible book that covers early childhood, the first 2 years of development. And really it is this style. I was probably reading blogs or articles or research and just coming up with my own, style of letting the kids develop themselves. But she has this all laid out, because this is her thing. She's a pediatric physical therapist. So she's really formally studied this. I was just winging it and going with my instincts. But my kids are both athletes, and they're their gross motor skills are fantastic, and their fine motor skills also very, very good. I will say, when I'm trying to teach them concepts, for example, when Lila was 4, this is actually in my book. Can I read you this bit?
Yeah, please do.
My book, Body by Breath. So in the book, I have a chapter on fascia and your sensing systems. And in the fascia and your sensing systems, I go over proprioception, which is your body's sense of place and placement in itself. And then I also go over interoception, which is your body's ability to physiologically listen to itself, your subtle sensing systems. And when Lila was really little, I wanted to see if she had a notion of proprioception. And so this is a little box inside of chapter 6 on fascia and your sensing systems. There's the box. So there's a picture. I'm showing Adam and Holly right now. There's a picture of a brain, and then there's like a hand with a finger pointing skyward, raising out of the brain. This is really short. Do you know where so this title is Stop, Breathe, Proprioceive. Do you know where your feet are right now without looking at them? Is one closer to your midline? Is one turned out? Is one supporting more of your weight than the other? These are all proprioception impressions that your body typically keeps under the radar unless you direct your attention to them. One day, as I drove my 4-year-old daughter to preschool, I decided to play a game with her to find out if she could understand the concept of proprioception. Me: Lila, isn't it interesting that if I say, feel your knee, without touching it or looking at it, that you can feel it all of a sudden? Mm-hmm. There was a silence in the back seat. I checked my rearview mirror to see that she was still looking straight ahead and not glancing at her knee. Then, after about 20 seconds, she responded, Lila, pretend your brain is a finger. And just like that, she expressed the ability to move her thinking sense into her body. It could easily be argued that proprioception would say, pretend your finger is a brain. But come on, she was 4. Good grasp of embodiment at an early age. So yeah, I'll mess with my kids. I'll throw down some concepts and see if I can, if they are able to grasp what I want them to grok. And it's really exciting.
You going to go in, Holly?
I was just going to say, something I've always wondered, I hope this is related, is how can one tell if you are someone who is disconnected from your body?
We're so English. How can one tell?
How can one tell? But how can, yeah.
What a great question. So I'm going to leap way forward. So there's a category of There's a category of body to brain and brain to body communication that I think is actually quite common in bodies, and that is sensory integration. So our body's ability to pick up on sensory cues and capably respond to them. For many bodies, especially bodies that I think are deficient in touch, or deficient in movement, the signals are dimmer. Mm. And that shows up in just clumsiness, lack of coordination, or really the inability to process movement instruction, but also sometimes movers don't always process auditory cues into their body. And so there might be another better way to awaken, especially these tactile sensory integration maps for people. I mean, that really has been one of the premises of my initial work in the yoga space, Yoga Tune-Up. I was really concerned with the lack of what I saw in the classroom as proprioception. I saw that people had what I call body blind spots, areas of overuse, underuse, abuse, or body confuse. And that body confusion was the thing that interested me most. Like, how come when I say, move your shoulder this way, and this literally happened to me in class the other day, I was trying to have my students simply retract their shoulder blades, in other words, move the shoulder blade towards the spine, or protract the shoulder blade, move the shoulder blade away from the spine, spreading, increasing the space, the distance between the scapula and the spine. And inevitably, there's 1 or 5 students in the classroom that when you say to do that, what they do is they bend their elbow. Mm. There's literally no communication from brain to scapula movers. Right, so they're, instead of just isolating the scapula and moving the scapula towards the spine and away from the spine, she's bending her elbow to make that happen. And so for a student like that, it's a very interesting story, because there's like a part 2 to the story that I discovered in the dressing room later. I'd never seen this student before. So for this student, what the fix could be, and it wasn't something that was in the plan for the class that day. We had other things planned. What I would do is I would bring out, I had these products called a yoga tune-up ball. It's a grippy, pliable massage ball. And if I saw that a number of students were having this proprioceptive disconnection, they couldn't process visually what I was showing them, they couldn't make the movement occur in their body, we would take the yoga tune-up ball and probably roll it around the shoulder blade, do a few things. I would also deliberately have them bend and straighten the elbow, so that they could distinguish, they could differentiate movements of the scapula versus movements of the elbow. And we could elaborate this on, a lot more. So typically that will really improve the body to brain sensing. So the sensory motor map is improved, and then they can get on with the movement. Now, when I went into the dressing room later, this student was unclothed, and I could see scars on her breast tissue. Now, I don't know if she had, implants, or if she had some breast surgery, but she had some significant interruption to her breast tissue at some point in her life, and she's a young woman. And so my next thought when I saw that was, sometimes there can be a very mixed signal, specifically to the scapula and to the shoulder, if there has been a breach in tissues on the anterior side of the thorax, or on the anterior chest, right? So there can be a disconnection of the motor mapping due to scar tissue, due to implants, due to an interruption in the soft tissue that can really problematize the proprioceptive ability. Now, I didn't know her earlier, so I couldn't say, previously when she didn't have scars there, what was her scapula moving like back then? I don't know. But I always find that that's a really interesting association. And I do work with a lot of people with implants, explant surgery, post-cancer breast removal. And there often is a lot of involvement in shoulder, neck, hand, elbow, this upper extremity relationship because of those surgeries.
I find that many people in let's say an average yoga class, in terms of awareness of body in space, I think a lot of the issues occur that I see when their body's in a different relationship to gravity. So in a familiar shape, but in a different relationship to gravity. For instance, if someone is in Warrior 2, most people don't have an issue of getting their arms in line with their chest, a 90-degree angle approximately between arm and side body. But in something like Revolved Half Moon, suddenly, or just a forward fold with a twist and an arm extension, the angle suddenly becomes 20 degrees, the arm is way behind them. What would you say to students as a piece of advice for them to create more awareness of body in space in poses that are unfamiliar or in different relationships to gravity? How could how can a teacher encourage that in their students without stopping class?
So my dog is barking, so if she keeps getting louder, I will end up bringing her in. So what I didn't say about this exercise is, first, we actually were on all fours, and we were in a quadruped position, and her hands were on the ground. And typically, that closed chain, having the hands on the ground, allows for the best pressure feedback into the axis. So basically we were doing scapula push-ups on all fours, not even loaded, just your knees are bent, your hands are bent, so you're squeezing your shoulder blades together, you're moving them apart, but she and a few others couldn't get it. So then I had to illustrate it up here where they were open chain, where their hands are in the air, and they were doing the same movement. But the pattern still persisted, where the other couple of people were like, oh, I get it now. And so for somebody that it's still really challenging, well, the next thing would be I could have her with her hands overhead holding onto a strap or onto a heavy bolster, and pushing the bolster up and then letting the bolster, and this would be upward rotation of the shoulder, so lifting the shoulder blades up and then allowing the shoulder blades to drop down without letting the elbows bend. So basically what I'm doing is I'm changing the physical input into the limb, into the hands, into the end of the limb, and just keep trying every tactic of awakening. I could also have her stand at the wall and lean into the wall with her rib cage and then move her rib cage away without letting her elbows bend. So all of these would be different cue sets, and they would be different gravitational relationships and stimulation relationships through the hand to the shoulder to help her repattern whatever that elbow, the need for her bicep to control her movement, right? So I need to bypass her bicep. So for what you're saying, one of the things that in the Yoga Tune-Up teacher training, which is my sort of foundational course that I developed, 2008? Yes, so 15 years ago, is we have this entire section called change of orientation. And so what I would have the students do is I'll assign a pose. Warrior 3 is a great one. All right, Haley, let me let the dog in. She's going to keep barking.
Dog's welcome. Oh, bring her in.
Was the dog called Haley?
Come on.
I think so.
Come on.
Haley. Oh,
in or out?
Haley.
Come on. In or out?
Oh, show her. Let's see. Guess what dog it is, Adam? What kind of dog?
Teased.
What kind of dog is it? I'm going to go Labrador.
I think a sprightly dog.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can.
We were just discussing what we think what kind of dog it is. She is.
Oh,
we're going to get a viewing.
Okay,
now.
we're going to get it.
Here we go.
Right.
Here we go. Haley, where is she?
Not yet.
Haley. Is she a boxer?
Is she a pit bull?
that's right.
Boxer or pit bull?
No,
Both.
pit bull.
Pit bull.
Haley.
Haley.
She's stunning.
Oh, she's so cute.
Little black and white picture. How old is she? She's walking like she would meet an older dog, or just a very tired
9.
dog.
Oh, she's so cute.
9. Yeah, but, pitties are they're not like the bounding. I mean, they are when they play, they bound, but otherwise they're like, I'm just a bunch of slow twitch fibers. I'm just gonna lumber this way. Oh, you're not supposed to sleep there. You know you're not supposed to go on my yoga mat. She's right on my yoga mat. She knows she's not supposed to do that. Okay, so we have this exercise called pose orientation. So change pose orientation. And so one of the exercises we do is, oh my God, I wish I had her in here. I have one of those yoga Barbies. Her name is Live Better in Your Barbie. Our tagline for Yoga Tune-Up is Live Better in Your Body. So she's Live Better in Your Barbie. And so what I do is I put her into Warrior 3 shape. And you can picture it, right?
Yeah.
You can picture Barbie, and then I say, all right, now you put her in a snow globe. You shake her up, you shake her up, you shake her up, and how's she going to land? And so, she landed on her hands. So if she lands on her hands, then she's in a handstand with one hip flex, right, with one leg out. If she ends up landing on her back, same position, but she's in basically Padangusthasana 1 with an open chain Padangusthasana 1. Or sometimes she lands and her 2 feet are on the wall, and then the flex tip is on the floor, and so she's in a closed chain at the wall. And each one of these patterns provide different feedback to the agonists and antagonists of the position, and it really improves the mapping of that shape. And then how are the agonists behaving? How are the antagonists behaving? How are the synergists behaving? And so on and so forth. So that is a really great way, right? And I can reverse it. Her hands could be at the wall and the leg on the floor, and right? So you can see it's the same pose. And by the way, there's like 100 different variations. Like we've figured out so many different ways to land that Warrior 3 in a snow globe. And they love it. And then we'll do it with other poses. And then we'll also decompose. So the thing is for many people, like just having your shoulders overhead is very challenging with the scapulo-thoracic joint. Maybe your lats are very restricted. So every pose is an assessment pose. Every pose allows us to see range of motion, allows us to find these blind spots, and allows us to get really curious about our students. Because the end point for us in Yoga Tune-Up and what I teach is not the pose, the process is the pose. So we're really interested in each person's process of learning about their body and having these light bulb moments that illuminate these body blind spots.
And I was going to say, I love what you said before about the different way to get that individual to explore kind of the scapula in that sense. I would say that like the tip for vinyasa teachers or anyone teaching more flow-based style of yoga is if you know you're going to be concentrating on a certain action or a certain movement or a certain sensation, do it early with those kind of exercises. Don't try and teach people that while they're doing lolasana or bakasana. Get people used to that idea and that engagement early on in class, and in a more static initial 10 minutes. Yes,
there is definitely a way to do it dynamically. I don't teach vinyasa. I mean, the reason I stopped teaching vinyasa is because specifically the shoulder is what threw me out of vinyasa, not my shoulder, their shoulders, because I wasn't able to communicate proprioceptive acumen and acuity well enough in the constraints of vinyasa. And I needed to actually go off the freeway. I needed off ramps, and I had to do these tune-ups. And then we would get back on into the vinyasa. And ultimately, that's what became yoga tune-up, is I needed to do so many tune-ups to help my students embody their body that I was like, you know what? Screw the flow. I'm just going to teach the tune-ups. And that became yoga tune-up.
Your balls, are they tune-up balls? They're obviously, and
yes, ma'am.
That's what they're called, right? Tune-up balls.
Well, there's 4 different balls. So they're all detailed in the role model, which was my first book. So the role model balls are different sized, grippy, pliable rubber balls. And the smallest of them are the yoga tune-up balls. And then the medium size are Therapy Ball Plus. And then the largest are the Alpha. And then, oh my gosh, I'm running all over the room.
Your house is a pit bull's heaven, isn't it? She is a very happy dog. She's surrounded by various sized balls.
Well, this is actually my studio. This is my teaching studio. So it's another, dwelling, also known as a converted garage. And then there's the gorgeous ball. Haley is very discerning. She will only go after non-role model balls. We don't know.
Good girl, well trained.
It's amazing. She knows. She's like, oh, that's what buys the food. So she does not eat the therapy balls. She only eats, other balls. But I do get, believe me, there have been plenty of pit bulls that have decimated gorgeous balls because people send them pictures to me all the time on Instagram.
That happened to mine. It wasn't a pit bull. It was a rescue dog from Romania, but she consumed my tune-up ball.
I'm sorry.
I would love to know about the. Obviously, they're incredible for the body and helping people to get into the body. But what about the role of emotions and helping people through emotional traumas and stresses and the use of the balls in that sense?
Yeah, that's why I had to write Body by Breath. So the therapy balls, when I first wrote the role model, I did a call to action out to my student community to say, hey, how have the balls helped you to heal? Please share your story. You're willing to share your story in my new book. I'm writing a book. And I got dozens of stories. And every story I anticipated was like, oh yeah, well, rolling really helped my back pain. Rolling helped me heal from knee surgery, or it helped me avoid knee surgery or whatever. But every story that came in had this huge emotional kernel and a huge emotional component. Everybody reported that the therapy balls and the rolling made them feel better emotionally, gave them a sense of well-being, that ephemeral feeling of, I just felt better, right? And that was true for me. Like the way I came into self-massage was my own mental health challenges as a tween. I was anorexic and bulimic, and self-massage helped me heal. It helped me find my way through my body and find my own answers. So I knew that there was value in it. And so I wanted to write a book about not just like how the balls help you with your range of motion, but how they help with your range of emotion, and specifically the self-regulating properties there isn't a lot of research on mental health and self-massage, specifically self-myofascial release, which is my specialty bucket. And although there is some new evidence that Robert Schleip recently produced just a couple of years ago about fascia and depression and rolling and depression. And, basically it improves affect and it improves your ability to focus and diminishes some of the negative affect. So, and that's like the only like solid research there is. There's some other compounded research on caregivers who are given therapy balls to roll on, along with some meditation strategies. So, it's blurry, but those people that were in the massage group, they tended to have better outlook on their life than people who weren't given balls to roll on while they're caring for people with dementia. So we have a long way to go to understand, exactly mechanism and all that stuff. But the thousands and thousands of testimonials that I've accumulated over the years, people use this work to calm themselves down, to still their body, still their mind, and literally get in touch with themselves. And so we can look at how pressure influences the sensory system, how it downregulates the sympathetic nervous system and upregulates parasympathetic features in the body. And also knowing that touch, whether it's, whether somebody else is giving it to or whether you're doing it yourself, inducing it through a tool, affects limbic centers in your brain. And so you may have emotional responses that are not necessarily associated with things. Like you might just find yourself crying and you don't know why, or you might find yourself in a state of pleasure or rapture, good feelings, and you don't know why, or you might find yourself suddenly re-experiencing anger or rage and not know why. But the balls are tumbling over the storehouse of story in your body and letting that stuff surface again. And typically when we're rolling, ideally when we're rolling, if we're rolling in an ideal setting, other parasympathetic features are being met, meaning you've induced a significant relaxation response so that your body finally can speak and it's no longer burying, stifling, avoiding, or dismissing the feels that arise.
So that sounds like a beautiful method of self-inquiry. And my question is related to that, in that many people, when you teach a more anatomically informed style of yoga, might say that's not yoga or that's not real yoga because you're focusing more on the function of the body rather than the deeper stuff. My argument is always that, the most tangible access point we have to the universe on ourselves is our body, and it is a perfect vehicle for inquiry. So I guess, have you ever had that kind of conversation with people or that kind of feedback, and what are your thoughts on this as a vehicle for self-inquiry and as a true practice of yoga?
Well, it's a very there's a lot of different ways I can answer that question. Many years ago when I had the audacity to call my work yoga tune-up instead of just yoga, that's when I really took a lot of the hit from the yoga community. Also trademarking those words. This was back in 2007 or 8 when I attempted to do that trademark. So, I had those conversations way back when. And what I ended up doing with this work was I brought functional movement and massage into the yoga space. It wasn't being done. And that was extremely radical, but there were so many people who were open to letting this work meet them and meet their suffering and meet their current needs, which was their bodies were in pain and they didn't know how to help themselves. You can keep going to doctors, you can keep going to chiros or clinicians to try to take care of you, but there are so many ways that you can manage your life stresses, that you can manage your structural stress, that a yoga pose is also going to bypass. The tools I use were there initially to service people doing yoga methodology and yoga, let's call it yoga performance or the performance of asana, as well as assisting them to be able to go into the tranquil stages of shavasana, and go through the 8 limbs. I just brought this radical sort of new equipment into the room, and also, freestyle. I kind of made up this style on the fly to help service the suffering of the people in front of me. And to me, that is yoga, like responding in the moment, being present with what is. And so I try not to get in a state of judgment about, that this really isn't yoga or this really is yoga. I actually just sidestep it completely. And I say, you know what, I'm looking at the human body. I'm looking at my students who have unresolved questions about their pain or the repetition of their pain. And I want to be there to supply them education. And I'll do that by whatever means necessary. So whether it looks like yoga, or whether it looks like jump rope, or whether it looks like rolling around on balls, I'm going to try to support them in the best way possible. And the yoga space has been extremely open to it. And where people push back, they don't want to understand my message, and that's totally fine. Like I might not have been open to this message when I didn't have any pain in my body either.
One thing I'd love to know now is kind of a slightly different direction.
I don't know, what are they saying out there, Adam?
I think what you do has been around for long enough that it is for many people that practice yoga now in the West. For you,
because you're a millennial. I mean, I'm 51. I'm Gen Xer. I was, the first yoga mats we used was carpet lining. Like there wasn't even yoga mats when I first started doing. So like I'm from a different generation of the yoga space. So when I say I disrupted the yoga space, it was very scary because there were 3 types of yoga you did, and that was it.
With Ashtanga, Iyengar, was Bikram around then? Bikram was number 3. I would love to talk a little bit about fascia now, in that I think a lot of people talk about it without really understanding it. And I don't claim to have a deep understanding of fascia.
Truer words were never spoken, Adam. I was just having this discussion with one of my research friends yesterday.
And it's a buzzword. One of my friends, he is...
It shouldn't be a buzzword. It's actually a scientific term. And it's a body part.
This chap I'm talking about, he's one of the leading clinical physios in the UK. And that's part of what he studies. And he's nothing to do with the yoga world. But I presented him with some content from how the yoga world spoke about fascia. And the way this man thinks is wonderful. I love him. He's just such a critical thinker. He's amazing. He was getting infuriated. It's like, it's just not right. They're lying.
What did they say?
They're lying to make money. They're lying to people. And it was wonderful. It was really wonderful what he's... But I wouldn't do him justice if I tried to say what he was saying. So what are your thoughts on what you're hearing about this buzzword of fascia, and what are people really misunderstanding?
Oh man, fascia has become like the golden child of the body, and it has all the properties of everything, and like you can just ascribe everything to it, and it's a thinking thing, and it's a feeling thing, and it's a moving thing, and it is a lot of things. Fascia is an amazing, it's amazing web. And it happens to tie everything together in our body. It's the scaffolding that supports every cell, almost every cell, from foot to face and everything in between. It's not tying your brain cells together, though. That's one of the places where you will not find fascia. So, it's hard to. I guess it's hard to answer your question without spending a lot of time getting cellular and getting extremely granular. But, the fascial tissues are membranous. They're also webby. They are made of collagen and elastin. They are full of fluids. They are also loaded with sensory neurons. But that doesn't mean that the fascia is thinking. Your brain is the thing that thinks. This is, I just maybe clear that up. Your fascia is not thinking. But fascia, it is peppered with 250 million sensory neurons, which is insane. Your skin has 200 million, and your eyes have 150 million. So fascia is at this point, our most sense-rich organ of our body, but it's not the thing that's thinking.
Is it feeling?
Clarify that. What's that?
Is it feeling?
Well, the sensory neurons are what allow you to feel. Like it's not feeling. But there are cells within the fascia that do feel, right? I mean, your cells have pressure sensors. Almost all of your cells have these ability to sense pressure in the environment around them. And your fibroblasts, which are the cells that create fascial matrix, they're responding to pressures all the time, which is how your fascias adapt, right? Like for an example of that is if you are... let's do the couch potato analogy. Everyone loves the couch potato.
I don't think I've heard that. I don't think I've heard the couch potato.
Oh, come on. You guys have couch potatoes in England?
What are you talking about?
Oh, I thought there was a particular... Oh, no, let's carry on. I thought there were I haven't heard the couch potato as it relates to fascia, but there are certainly couch potatoes.
Oh, that's great. Robert Schleip, who is, I already mentioned before, he talks a lot about the couch potato type. So the couch potato type, is the person who is not doing a lot of moving, not inducing a lot of movement into their body. And so in a couch potato shape, you've got a kind of a C slump of the spine. You have your hip flexors typically in a shortened position. Well, if your hip flexors aren't getting a signal to lengthen on the regular, the connective tissue in that zone will become shorter and tighter and denser because the cells aren't getting the signal to lay down collagen in a variety of ways. If the only way they're being told to lay down collagen is this particular shape, then it will rigidify you in that shape. And so that by the time you stand up from the couch, you don't have fully extending hips anymore. So this is some of the ways that our body adapts to whatever it does most. And the cells within your fascia, they're paying attention to the signal of movement and pressure to shape your form for you. If people who are listening are like, well, I really do like fascia, and I like the different conversations that are out there, and Jill's kind of making fun of fascia buzzspeak. Let me direct you to a resource because I don't want to be a jerk about this. My good friend David Lazondak, I think, has one of the most user-friendly books on fascia that's written. It's called Fascia: What It Is and Why It Matters, and it's written like an extended version of Rolling Stone magazine. I mean, it really reads easy, and I think that would be the best place to start on a general book on fascia to really understand fascial remodeling, to understand what I'm talking about with the fibroblast behavior. And, secondarily to that, for those of your listeners who are clinically inclined, I contributed a chapter into a medical textbook called Fascia Function and Medical Applications. And this book, Fascia Function and Medical Applications, actually presents specialized fascial topics for the medical community, but the clinical community, PTs, OTs, massage therapists, and movement and yoga therapists or yoga teachers that are like, I really want to learn more. That is a great compendium of specialized topics on fascia for you to look into as well. I really would like your sources to be as accurate as possible. And unfortunately, TikTok and Instagram are the worst places to learn about connective tissue, but these books will also align you and alert you to researchers and the type of research that's being done. I think those are two really great resources. Of course, I would also suggest, my books are very good. They're full of citations as well, and I try to speak in a way that the average. Not average. You're not average. You're listening to the Honesty on Balance podcast, but the curious mind. It can really, you'll be able to process this work and, process the understanding of fascia as a structural element, and then also fascia and the sensing systems, and that's in Body by Breath. And then the role model is a little bit older, but luckily all the claims I made earlier when there was less research. The claims have held up.
Still true.
By research now, which I then substantiate in Body by Breath.
Can I, and as an extension of that might be a little bit more condensed.
Yeah.
Is there anything you're seeing on the Twitter, on TikTok, or things about fascia that is dangerous? Is there a risk that people could harm themselves through a misunderstanding of fascia?
Well, okay. I will say that there are tool providers out there that have tools that they encourage people to deliberately bruise themselves using certain products, hard products, almost like products like to beat yourself up with. And that's not breaking up adhesions. That is not eliminating scar tissue. That's actually damaging healthy tissue, creating bruising events, bleed events, and possibly creating even more rigidity in the scar that you're attempting to eliminate. So, you can remediate scars. It takes a lot of time, and you have to be very, it's not just something that I would encourage people willy-nilly to do in an aggressive manner. But there are providers out there who are encouraging some almost self-flagellating type of approaches. And I don't think that's not a best practice based on my knowledge and the knowledge of other researchers that believe me, I've had many back channel conversations about with. So that is something to really look out for. You should not end up with significant bruising after you've done scar manipulation or trying to improve glide amongst tissues. You might be a little bit sore, but you should not have visible bruising or bleeds underneath the skin.
Well, I've never come across that. So it's far more intense.
Oh, really?
So
maybe that's just in the US.
Maybe because we have percussive therapy here, but I've never heard of anyone being bruised. Yeah.
I feel like we should talk a little bit about breath, given that your book is called Body by Breath. So how do you combine your breath work with your body work?
It was never separate. So it's not like I'm combining anything. It was always a part of the work. Mm-hmm. Because in order for the rolling therapy to really take a hold in your body, you want to create a very relaxed parasympathetic dominant state in order for your regenerative ability, your healing ability to come online, your recovery ability. If you're spun out or sympathetically aroused or in general fight mode, a therapeutic application is literally going to bounce off you because of the rigidity in your tissues. So in order to be able to receive deep touch, relevant touch, and helpful touch, and when I'm speaking of touch, what I mean is with the therapy balls doing self-massage, you want to create a cascade of parasympathetic features to allow for healing to occur. So Body by Breath is a book that helps you to host yourself in that deep relaxation state. And that relaxation state isn't easy for all bodies to achieve. I came across research recently that was talking about a phenomenon called relaxation-induced anxiety. Where for many bodies, stillness is very threatening. Like when their body is still or trying to meditate or lying still in Shavasana, corpse pose, that's when the pain surfaces. That's when the bad feelings surface. That's when not only bad emotional feelings, but literally they'll feel nerve rushes going down their legs, going down their arms, uncontrollable movement. They're not trying to generate it. It's their sympathetic nervous system saying, I'm not safe. I need to be on guard. Get me out of here. And for those individuals, they need to be able to have a parasympathetic paradise too. How can we help? This is like 53% of people, by the way. This was the stat from this research. I was blown away. But you think about how many people are meditation averse. And while I think yoga attracts, for the most part, the people that are like, oh yeah, I really like that stillness, especially that dessert pose at the end where I just get to lay there and pretend to be asleep. But not everybody is in yoga practices. I mean, you have a lot of high intensity gyms and other venues that never focus on parasympathetic features. Really, it's all go, 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 push, push, push. And I'm not saying that only that people who attend those places can't enjoy Shavasana, but this side of the resiliency spectrum, it takes practice. And so the book is full of tools to help bodies from every side of the movement spectrum and every side of health and wellness to be able to find a practice that really does help them to acclimatize and to attenuate their nervous system to a true relaxation response, to a true parasympathetic dominant state. And I use 4 major tools, which is breath or breathe, roll, move, and then non-sleep deep rest, also known as yoga nidra. So these 4 tools truly are a compound pharmacy that help people to create the ability to endure their relaxation response. And so breath is just one tool to acclimate people, but breath is so direct. And it really is so easy to manipulate it, and it's free. But when you compound it with some of the other features that I highlight in the book, and when you pull these things together, it's tremendously restorative.
We're on 50 minutes already. We don't want to keep you much longer because you've had a busy podcasting day. So we're going to do some little quick fire questions now, if we could. So this might not be quick fire entirely, but I know through your practices, people can build resilience. I think when some people think of resilience, they think of grit, like a determination to get through like a hard night in the rain or a marathon. How would you talk about resilience in this context?
Well, you can't grind it out if your tank is empty. And so the way to refill your tank isn't by continuing to spin out and run. You actually have to slow down, pull up to the gas station and refuel. And this is the refueling.
Oh, perfectly put.
Can you leave our listeners with one of your favorite quotes, maybe from your book, or a mantra that you live by, something inspirational to finish with? In both the role model and Body by Breath and in Yoga Tune-Up, I work with Sankalpa. Sankalpa is something that I learned, maybe 20 years ago, and has been one of the most effective tools for me. And that is a very, very deep inner resolve. And in the book, I redefine these as mindset, because I think mindset is something that general population can really grasp. Oh yeah, just put this in your mind. But these mindset strategies are really helpful as a top-down host to the process of embodiment, because embodiment can be really spooky, especially when you start to have really weird feelings coming up from who knows where. So I have a number of these mindsets that I use on a day-to-day basis for my own anchoring and my own ability to cope with life. One that I offer people who are on a path of embodiment is, all of me is welcome here.
Lovely.
All of me is welcome here. Because when you start to sort of decompose all the tension and the armoring that you've established to get through, some of the parts of you that start to speak they're not really that nice. You're like, wait, if you were my neighbor, I don't know that I'd invite you over. But like, I need to listen to you. I'm here for you. All of me is welcome here. I'm here for you. So there's a lot of that in the book so that you can really host this experience. But I love all of me is welcome here.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
And where can people find you? Obviously, the book is out now everywhere. We've got a copy of it. It's out in the UK?
Yes, amazon.co.uk. Did you hold it up before? Am I
can hold it up now.
It is.
There it is.
Beautiful book.
Yes, and it's here in the US
Double
also.
holding.
Yes, it's available worldwide on Book Depository, and then it's available everywhere books are sold. So you can go to independent booksellers or not independent and tell them, please get Body by Breath on your bookshelf. And of course, it's available in ebook also. which I mean, I never recommend that. I'm a paper person. I'm from the 70s. I like paper.
Yeah, I think any reference book you can't do Kindle. I read fiction and short books on reference wise. You can't do Kindle.
No way. Yes, and so I can be found on our website, which is tuneupfitness.com. I teach classes. I have an online classroom that we started during the pandemic. We have about 250 very beautifully produced classes there, and I drop a new class every week, plus mentor sessions with our subscribers. There's also a number of courses available through my website. I have courses with my good friend Tom Myers, who created Anatomy Trains, Katy Bowman, and I created a course called Walking Well. My friend Kelly Starrett of the Ready State, he and I have a course there. So there are many programs that can really bring you into the work via an online forum, just like we're meeting across countries here. But of course, I also teach in-person events all over the place. Now that the pandemic is said to be over, I'm on the road and teaching as much as I possibly can, as much as my family can can allow.
Are you back in London anytime soon? 'Cause you've been to Try Yoga before, haven't you? I believe.
Yes, I've been to Try Yoga a number of times, and there are invitations on the table to come back to England, but I haven't been able to commit to Europe or England for 2023, but hopefully 2024 I'll get over there. The closest I'll be is on the East Coast of the United States, so maybe you can come visit me there, and also East Coast of Canada, so maybe come visit me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Much.
It's been such a pleasure.
Honestly unbalanced.